Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. Thank you for joining us, and I'm your host, Ben Crossman. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day as we get things kicked off here with another great show of Computer America. So, for anyone out there who has not heard about today, we have Select City Magazine here with us. And yeah, that's right. They are a publication that, has everything from the best bars, restaurants, events, attractions, all packaged inside a beautiful website. And then, of course, makes it easy and convenient by, throwing it into your devices. So, it's certainly a different type of interview, but it's technology nonetheless, I guarantee you. And, I think we all run into that situation where we go somewhere new, or even if we're in our own city, we're still looking for, good recommendations, on where to eat, what to do, things to see. So, yep, very happy to have the CEO, Mr. Scott Steinberg, here with us to talk all about it. But before we do that, a few things I should mention, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find anything and everything to do with today's show, including links to our guest website, links to any articles that we do during computer and technology news. Just anything and everything will be at our website. Also, while you're there, be sure to check out the social media contest, win a great prize from Logitech. We just had another winner this Friday, and hey, it could be you next Friday. Again, by Logitech. And then the last thing is the video portion where you can watch Computer America. It's fun. It's not mandatory by any means, but it's just another way to experience the show. Check it out. Hey, you may just like it. And yeah, I think that's about everything. So, just again, I want to give our guests as much time as possible because I really, I really do like services such as this because it's, just so very human, I think, for all of us to kind of say, oh, you've been to Miami, where'd you go, where'd you stay, what'd you eat, where'd you recommend? And I think blending technology into that is a great way for people to just kind of get out and explore. So again, very happy to do this. So welcome onto the show, Scott Steinberg, who is the CEO of Select City Magazine. So, Scott, thanks for joining us on Computer America. Welcome.
Hey, my pleasure. How's it going today?
It is going well. So, like I said, this is something definitely new for Computer America. First time on, I believe, but very happy to have you on. So, give us a little bit of a background of Select City Magazine, of Scott Steinberg. Where'd you come from, and where did the idea for Select City Magazine come from?
Sure. Well, Select is basically an inside concierge. It's your personal guide to just about any city and the fastest way to get to know it and live like a local. So basically, you can crash land in some of the world's biggest cities and know exactly what's going on in terms of bars, restaurants, and events. In fact, we've got an event calendar that you can export to your smartphone, tablet, or PC or Mac in seconds. So literally, if you're going to go to New York for the weekend, you can load it up with events, get off the plane, and in seconds know where to be and when. So my background is as a technology consultant and analyst, also wrote for about 600 outlets from CNN to Rolling Stone. So obviously, as you can imagine, on the road quite a bit. And like many people, always trying to stay on top of the busy schedule and think about what's new and what's happening. I like to go out, take in new restaurants, try new places, see what's happening around town in terms of the latest attractions. And so we thought we would put together a helpful guide that would really give people a way to do this in seconds. Because I got to tell you, sometimes trying to put together a calendar of things to do and know what to see and when, it's not always easy to stay on top of, right? To know the latest and greatest in your city. And it's certainly not always easy when you're crash landing in a place to know what's coming and where you want to go, especially if you want to meet people or hang out, or if you want to take a client. You don't always know the character of the different spots, and you certainly don't always know what the best bars or restaurants are. You can find some basics online, but what you can't always find is when to be there, what to order off the menu, what the atmosphere is. Do you want to go with a group? Do you want to go with a date? So we really try to make that as simple as possible for people to figure out.
I got you. I got you. So, for anyone out there watching the video portion, we have the website up. Currently there are a few cities. We'll let you tell everyone what cities you currently serve, and you have a couple more coming up. So, I mean, obviously you seem to be a traveler yourself. I'm not sure if these were just cities that you kind of knew intimately, but what cities do you serve? And, what qualifies a city to, be up so far?
Sure. Well, right now we're serving Washington, D.C., we're serving Miami, and we're serving St. Louis. We'll have a number of other cities like Atlanta, New York, Los Angeles, Nashville, Dallas, and the like coming soon. But essentially, we started off in cities where we had a number of writers who knew the town like the back of their hand, and we really knew that we could make an impact, especially the kind of towns where it's hard to stay on top of what's coming next and where to be. And there's certainly cities in this country, for example, where it's very easy to find things to do, but there are others where you have to go on specific nights. The same place could be dead on a Tuesday that's hopping on a Thursday, of course. And you have other towns where there's just so much going on, for example, like Washington, D.C. or Miami, where they're trying to pare it down to the best things possible. That's not an easy task. So we wanted to go where we could make an impact the fastest. And, of course, we'll be spreading out along the East Coast, West Coast, and throughout the rest of the Midwest. Chicago is another city that's planned soon. And basically, we try and pick some of the biggest and brightest attractions, places where you've got a culinary or a drinking and craft cocktail scene that's on the rise. And we're trying to have as much fun with it as possible. So chances are we're coming to your town soon.
Absolutely. And very cool to have things like Miami, because trust me, I've been to Miami. Sure, you could walk down, the street there and have a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's a massive city. You definitely want someone pointing you in the right direction. So, we're looking at, I believe, Washington, D.C., but, I'm sure this kind of information is available on any of these cities. Food and drink, culture, entertainment, events. What kind of information, how did you kind of curate the information? Because you could have gone a lot of different ways. You could have went with kids. You could have went with other types of entertainment. What information is available, and kind of how did you decide what was important to you?
Sure. Actually, we did go quite a few different ways. So one thing I should point out is even cities that we may not have a full site running for, we're doing guides for, because what we're trying to do is help people decode things faster and discover where it is the locals go and understand where to be and what's going on and what you want to order off the menu and the like. So part of what we did is we attacked it from a few angles. One, we said that essentially most people want to find things faster. They want to understand where to be, what to eat, what to drink, and depending on the situation, if they're there with friends or family, if they got visitors in town, if they want to take out their kids and entertain them, where should they go? And we try and point them there as fast as possible. And we also try and point out things like the latest in fashion trends and technology trends and the like, or automotive. And part of this we also noticed was that there's quite a large contingent of people who may be parents or who may be single parents that are essentially arriving on the scene and saying, okay, well, we've been to the same old museums, we've been to the same old major attractions, now where do we go? What can we do to impress our kids? What happens if I'm back out on the scene and I'm in my 40s versus in my 20s? What kind of bars and what kind of events exist that would better speak to me? So we try to find stuff for them. We certainly do things like the most dog-friendly bars in different cities. So if you're a pet owner, where can you narrow it down to? Where can you find a good patio? Where will Fido get the royal treatment? And we also try and find the things that maybe are a little bit off the beaten path. The comic book store that might get a liquor license for one night and be running events on a regular basis. And that's the places that might not just be doing a great brunch, but might be doing them around certain themes like heavy metal. Where do you want to go if you want to go to karaoke at 2 in the morning? We're trying to find those little hidden gems that may be hiding in your own backyard. So everything from the best first date spots to the best rooftop bars in town, that's the kind of stuff we're trying to uncover. So really what we tried to say was like, we need to go a layer deeper, right? And in fact, part of that, we have a trendsetters system where it's not just us. We have experts, local writers, who are curating and putting together some of the articles and recommendations, but we're also asking restaurateurs, we're asking entrepreneurs in the area, we're asking some local luminaries, newscasters and the like, to come and tell us what they think that people should see. What do they recommend? They know New York, for example, or Houston better than we do in many cases. So we're inviting local men and women, the people who get out and get on the scene and get on the town. We all have friends like that who knew what's new and next, and we're asking them to tell us. So in fact, anybody can go to the website and apply to become one of our trendsetters and create their own columns and be able to tell people what their favorite picks are, because of course what somebody in their 40s who's female might like may not be the same as somebody in the 20s who's male and constantly going out all the time.
Right.
You just have to decide. And the idea, the beauty of this is we're asking locals to take us on a tour, an inside tour, in fact, of their cities. We're not simply trying to come in and say, here's what we recommend. We want to know everybody's different tastes and preferences and those little hidden gems and things that they've discovered. So collectively, there's quite a bit of power in the crowd.
But Scott, and I have to bring this up because as this takes off, as Select City Magazine takes off, it's very clear that services such as this attracts businesses for kind of the wrong reason, who maybe, don't deserve to be on the front page, but want some free advertising, or, people want to submit their own establishments saying, hey, check out my tchotchke shop is a must-see attraction. You said that you kind of go through, what qualifies a person to be a contributor, but how seriously do you take kind of promoted content or, people trying to just put themselves ahead without, without due process?
Sure. Well, if you look on the site, you'll see that we don't have promoted content. In fact, we work with specific partners. We aim to vet everybody and connect with them to make sure that you guys are getting choice recommendations. So the reality is, we don't put anything on the site that we don't like. Effectively, our goal is to steer you to the best stuff in town. So if we don't want to see it, it's not there. And of course, these folks, we're asking them to give you what they prefer, their favorite stuff. And we ask them, of course, if they have any affiliations with it, not to promote it. So effectively what you get is a number of people who are happy to share their favorite spots around town. And of course, we're making sure that we're not getting spammed with somebody just plugging in a bunch of random links to the shady dive bar in the corner that nobody wants to visit at 2 in the morning.
Right. Yeah. It's obviously going to come up, and as you spread from city to city, people love to kind of self-promote. It's something that they certainly do, and very good that you're kind of keeping an eye out for it. But at the same time, you can't treat everyone like you can't treat everyone like they're just in it for themselves, because I think and you said you are a consummate traveler. People do like, it's very human, it's very natural for people to say, hey, I ate here, it was really, really good, you should check it out. So I can totally see that. So and again, I'm kind of looking through the website. You have a calendar. If you could just kind of real quick kind of walk someone through the format. I mean, are you going to see articles? Are you going to see strictly, restaurant recommendations? If someone were to visit, Select City Mac right now, what should they kind of take note of?
Sure. Some of the types of things you can see are, of course, traditional articles that'll guide you through the latest in food, the latest in fashion, that'll get you to, for example, the best outdoor bars, the best swimming pools in the city, the best places to hang. But on top of that, what you'll also see, for example, are photo galleries taking you on a tour of some of the world's most exotic destinations. You can also see recommendations from those local trendsetters. Like I said, where effectively you have men and women about town just like yourself. We'll give you their top picks. And of course, there's a full calendar of events where you can essentially decide where do I want to be and when, on what specific date. It'll take you hour by hour through different events happening in town, so you can decide if you want to go to a comedy club, if you would prefer to maybe take in a concert for the evening. You can get a sense from venues all over town what's happening in a single snapshot. And the nice part about it, of course, we'll have podcasts, we'll have videos as well, a number of tips. Could be everything on how to rock the online dating world to thinking about what are the best places in the country if you want to go for meetings or business events. We have tons of stories when it comes to vacation and travel, ways to survive any trip to a theme park, travel with kids. some of the most exotic destinations in the world that you can visit. Where do you want to go if you're headed for Europe? We really try and offer a more practical spin on things and say, okay, you need information and you need it fast. You're thinking about visiting a city or you just crash landed there. What do you need to know to make the most of the town and not have to sweat it, not have to put tons of time into research? That's what we really try and do, is guide you to that stuff faster.
Makes perfect sense. So, this is a very, very cool service. And again, you're coming to, different cities coming up. St. Louis, Washington, and Miami are ready to go. You have a couple, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, New York, and Nashville. So, and just real quick, tell us about the aspirations for Select City Magazine. Obviously, I'm sure you'd like this in every city across the country, but where do you kind of see this in the next year or so? Is this just the big cities? Is this wherever there's interest? I mean, where do you see this going?
Sure. Well, we're going to start with the big cities, and we'll also migrate into a number of different international areas so that if you're traveling overseas, you'll be able to figure out what's going on. But on top of this, I think the real magic happens when you start to get the many, many people like ourselves who like to go out and enjoy things, maybe enjoy fine dining, a good bottle of wine, maybe like to take in a show on any given night. They begin to work together to contribute their suggestions. And the beauty of this is you can actually go on the site and start to follow people who have similar interests as you do. So around these different cities and around these different towns, they can spread the word, they can create their own recommendations and articles, and you can really discover who shares similar tastes to you do, and you can tell your friends and they can pass it along, because we all have those friends that we bump into at parties or every once in a while, and they're telling you about all these great adventures they've tried and things they've done and places they've been. They'll be able to do that. So we'll start to filter down to some of the smaller cities in the next couple of years or so. But for now, we're sticking with the major tourist destinations, trying to get people as much information as fast as possible, because we know it'll be a help.
Right. And so everyone, again, selectcitymag.com. We have a link in the show notes. But Scott, we are not done with you, because if I'm reading my notes right, we're going to switch up the gears here a little bit. And, obviously you are the CEO of the company, but that doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do, apparently, because you can also write a book, it seems. So if you don't mind, we're going to switch gears here and talk about,
Sure.
You have a new book coming out about, well, the ever relevant, and, it seems like every passing month, ever more relevant, kids and social media. So, again, let's start from the top. What is your interest in being an author, and what is your interest in kids and social media?
Sure. So I've actually written a number of books, especially as regards to the technology and innovation spaces, thinking about new trends. And of course, I hear these social networks are going to be fairly popular with the kids someday, right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, apparently Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, of course, you see these everywhere you go. You got millions and millions of kids around the world using them. But what you start to realize, especially if you're in the technology field, is people aren't really getting a lot of the basic education and training they need to make the most of these networks, to be safe on them and to use them in a healthy and a positive manner. So I've written books in the past, for example, on online etiquette, such as Netiquette Essentials, and you really start to realize that a lot of people are turning kids loose on social networks without giving them some basic information or training wheels. And a lot of people, of course, are embracing these social networks themselves without understanding how to use them most effectively and positively. And so what you have are entire generations who are being encouraged to put more of themselves out there in a more public fashion, faster than ever before, with less of a second thought. So really trying to do everything we can to help educate people, make sure kids are safer online, that they have a better experience, and that we're really providing families with the tools that they need to have productive conversations around it. So as you pointed out, new book coming out on August 22nd. It's called The Modern Parent's Guide to Facebook and Social Networks. And what we try and do is take parents and take kids in a guided tour of what's happening out there and give them the tools and insights that they need to not only use these social networks in a more positive and upbeat manner, but also make sure that they're prepared to confront the dangers and challenges that operating in such a public and connected world presents.
Yeah, and but that can be almost as I feel like if you approach it the wrong way, you're going to, for lack of a better term, scare people, away from just saying, all right, social media is very, very strange and dangerous. You're not going to be using that ever. And I think that you know it as well as as much as the kids themselves know it, is that you really can't avoid social media forever. It's everywhere, it's pervasive, it's constant, and as soon as they get a smartphone, it's in their, it's at their fingertips literally 24/7. So, I mean, where do you kind of come at this? Do you come at this saying it's a tool for good, but you need to be educated on the risk, or do you say that this is just their friends and you need to kind of garden wall them into a scenario? I mean, how do you approach social media? Is it good or bad?
Sure. So social media is pretty neutral. It's like any technology, it's a tool, and it's all in how you choose to use the tool. And the potential for good is tremendous, right? Social media can allow you to connect with people all over the world from different influences and cultural backgrounds, and expose you to things and ideas that you would never otherwise encounter in the real world. So it's a really wonderful way for kids to connect and explore the world around them. The thing is, you have to give them proper training and education before you turn them loose in such a big, wide online world, noting that in the same way that you wouldn't just let them run wild in the real world in these big public spaces, you also kind of got to prep them, right? It's that Boy Scout motto of be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And parents and kids really need to be talking more frequently and thinking about how they can be better digital citizens and how they can be properly interacting online, making sure they know to think twice before they post, making them think about the messages that they might be sending, whether through photos or posts, making them think about the things they encounter online and whether or not they're true and whether or not there may be some controversy to them or some things that they need to be aware of. I mean, the thing is, social media is here. It's not going away, right? Millions of kids have it. We can't turn back the clock, but it's a very wonderful thing. The main thing that I think is not happening is that we're not having as many conversations as we should about social media and technology and how to use it in a productive and positive manner. The other thing being, too, that I really think from the earliest stage, we should be educating kids as to how they can be better digital citizens, how they can make sure that they're safer online, and really think about the things that they're posting, especially because many of them can be permanent, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, once you post something out there, it gets picked up by automatic bots and it's archived forever and ever and ever. As certain political public figures are figuring out, once it's out there, you cannot delete anything that you kind of post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. Well, yeah, Snapchat kind of, but yeah, it's once it's out there, absolutely. So, and there's been a lot of instances lately about law enforcement and about just, I think, the courts and judges and really the implications of what you do, what you say. There used to be this feeling of a Wild West scenario going on where you could say anything you wanted. It was online. It didn't matter. You were safe and your actions didn't have consequences. Does that ever come up in the book that, I think you did kind of allude to it, but how far do you say that, hey, what you do has consequences?
Well, I think the number one thing is to observe the golden rule and treat others the way that you would like to be treated, and to think about the messages that you're sending and also how they may be perceived, especially when you consider that when you put things online, things are often taken at face value, right? So if you put up goofy photos or pictures of yourself doing crazy stuff, I mean, people are going to think that's representative of your character, right? And that stuff is not going to go away. It can always be called up. So we try and get people to think a little bit more before they post. It's really not rocket science in most cases. You just got to really take time to take a step back and consider the implications of what you may be doing. And that's a big running theme throughout the book, because realistically what's going to happen, we don't use scare tactics, but kids 100% of the time are going to encounter questionable or controversial stuff, right? It's not going to happen every time they go online, but inevitably they will run into it. That's what I'm trying to say. And so the only thing you can do to successfully prepare them, especially because you as a parent can't be there 24/7 and so much interaction is happening online, is you really need to give them the tools they need to make better decisions, right? So that their judgment is a little bit more sound and they can really navigate the scenarios a little bit better or know where to turn if they need help. So a big piece of the book is really just thinking about what are some of the common basics that we need to get down, some of the common dangers we need to be aware of, and how do we create more positive and constructive dialogue and education and awareness surrounding some of these topics, because realistically you are going to have to confront questionable and troublesome things at certain points. But if we've done our job of preparing kids, if we've really done our best of raising them, and so much of this, by the way, is traditional parenting, not high-tech parenting, ironically,
Hmm.
then they should be in good shape to deal with whatever they encounter online or the future may bring. So I think social networks are great. What's happening, or perhaps not happening, is that we're just not giving people the training and the hands-on opportunities and learning channels that they really should be getting at an early age. I mean, we teach them how to deal with life in the real world to some extent, but we really don't do much, especially in early learning programs, to really prepare kids for what's going on out there in the virtual spaces.
Right. And you know, and I don't mean to you know, to bash your background, because you know, obviously, news media and news outlets, they, you know, they don't want to strictly portray an accurate picture of what's going on out there. They want to portray interesting events that will get you to pay attention. And I think that a lot of what happens on social media, we hear about the worst case scenarios through news media, and you know, you hear about, or at least you get the sense that social media is out to get you. And I think what you're saying is absolutely right. It's not. It's a tool. It's neutral, and you know, things do happen. But hey, you don't hear about the thousands of good things that happen on social media every single day. So it's you know, it's definitely good to have a book like yours that can kind of guide people through it. You know, any top tips for maybe parents that, you know, just a quick bullet for anyone maybe with a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, their first experience into social media? What do you kind of recommend as a parent talking to these kids?
Well, I would get started talking to kids as early as possible. Once they're about 6 or 7 years old, they're going to start to encounter online things. Let them know what life is like in the virtual world. I also recommend that you set up household rules and guidelines. They understand when it's safe to use high-tech devices, what infractions of those rules might look like, what's okay to do online and what's not, and under what circumstances things might be taken away, what times it's all right to utilize those. You also have to decide and speak with them about whom it's going to be okay for them to interact with. Are you cool with them connecting with strangers? Would you rather they connect with friends only? Have you made sure that they've set up all their accounts and configured them properly so that you can make sure that things are only being shared with the networks of people that you want as opposed to random strangers? Have you spoken with them about some of the dangers that they might encounter online? You got to have the talk, just like you would have to talk about the birds and the bees. And most importantly, as a parent, you got to remember that homework is not just for kids; it's for adults too. So you really have to take the time to educate yourself and play around with some of these services, as features and updates are changing on a running basis. But the good news that I always tell parents, a lot of them seem to feel that maybe they're clueless or powerless, because of course they do have the power to affect positive change. And the beauty is once you master one social network, once you've got the basics down, you've probably got about 70 to 80% of what you need to figure out the rest. So it's not like you have to understand 70,000 different things and constantly keep up with them. You really just need a good understanding and context of what's going on, and you need to make sure that you are connected with your kids when possible and that you're a trusted, caring presence in their lives, that they know you're in the background, that you have some idea of what's going on. And do your best to foster constructive dialogue and positive dialogue in the household. Let them know you're not going to freak out when they come to you with something,
Right.
but maybe you can have a chat with them and figure out how to come up with a positive resolution.
Right. What you're saying is what we've heard from other, you know, other, especially programs that are made to, you know, kind of monitor what kids do online on their devices. It's not so much about surveilling your kids; it's about, you know, starting conversations with them, and you know, being able to have that conversation and actually help them when the need arises. So, you know, great that you seem to be echoing the same sentiment. Last point here, and you know, there, and again, I kind of touched on it earlier with, you know, news outlets. They love the stories that, you know, so and so was caught messaging, you know, so and they shouldn't have been, or you know, other terrible things. But maybe that touches on it. What are some of the biggest misconceptions about social media and children?
Well, I think people assume that kids are going to go out there and they're suddenly going to interact with strangers, and that all the strangers are going to be menacing and they're going to have ill intentions. And certainly there's some bad apples out there who can spoil things for the entire bunch, but you also have to keep in mind that there are plenty of normal, well-adjusted people using these services and plenty of good opportunities. Kids can learn through their use of these. They can be exposed to other cultures, people from other backgrounds. They can find out more about the world around them. They can have a chance to play games. They can share things in the company of others. They can tell their stories online. They can learn to become better communicators. They can find opportunities to connect with friends whose paths they never crossed in real life. I mean, there's 1,001 upsides to these, but again, it's all in how you choose to use them and how you choose to behave online that'll define your experiences. And certainly there's plenty of positive and upbeat stories. The thing I think to keep in mind, ironically enough, I also wrote a book that involved a lot of human psychology.
Right.
And you realize that the more you hear about something, the more you think it's likely to occur, and the less you hear about something, the less likely you think it is to happen. So if you hear the negative stories, you'll think that's more common. Remember, there's positive stories and all sorts of great things that do happen too.
Right, absolutely. And actually, Scott, would you mind staying over for like just a minute so we can give this a proper send-off?
Sure.
All right, perfect, thanks. So everyone, Computer America, we'll be right back.
Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. You know, we almost just had it just perfect, but that's okay. You know, it's only going to take a minute to finish this up. Everyone, Scott Steinberg, CEO of Select City Magazine, and of course, tech columnist and author. Obviously, as we've been talking about these past couple minutes, and Scott, you know, I totally, you know, when I was setting this all up, I was like, I've heard of that before, but you know, Scott is a very common name, Steinberg's a very common name, and then I just realized that your book, Kids and Video Games, the Modern Parenting Guide, or Parent's Guide, I actually read your book, you know, when that one first came out, and I was like, oh, yeah, there we go. And yeah, so, you know, you're obviously very, very well informed. You do your research and you do invite a lot of, not just parents who are opinionated and things like that, but you do get a lot of experts in the field. So, this has been great talking to you. This has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the new book. When did you say it was coming out? And if people are interested, where can they go to find it?
Sure, absolutely. The Modern Parent's Guide to Facebook and Social Networks will be out on August 22nd. You can go to www.akeynote-speaker.com. Again, akeynote-speaker.com, and you can find out all about us. All
right, we'll include a link to akeynote-speaker.com. And Scott, unless there's anything else, thank you for coming on Computer America. This was a lot of fun.
My pleasure. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
No problem, no problem. And of course, looking forward to have you back, you know, maybe next book, next thing, but again, this was fun. So everyone, one more time, of course, Scott Steinberg, and the first thing was the Select City Magazine, and the second thing was books. Busy guy, and good luck out there, Scott. Thanks a lot.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks again. Have a great one.
Bye-bye. All right, there he goes. So, and yeah, that was a pretty interesting interview, because we obviously went from one side is the service, the website, and, you know, restaurant reviews, things like that. And then we immediately switched gears over to books and, being an author and kids and social media. Two very odd things to have juxtaposed, but, you know, he seems like a very passionate guy, and you can see where he's coming from. So very interesting. Love to have him on. And now, everyone, let's talk about computer and technology news. So here we go. One last time, computer and technology news. All right, so let's open these up here. And we have a couple of different stories. although we have a lot of different ones, and ones that like obviously we try to aim computer technology to the consumer as often as possible. So that's why we have, how about this one? And we know that we have a pretty we have a pretty loyal following when it comes to the disabled community. We love having companies such as Jaws on and things like that, and we definitely hear from you guys when something that we do is not disability friendly. So we try to really put a hand out there. So when this article came up, I thought it was a great step for Microsoft to take. So here we go. This coming from Engadget and Mr. John Fingus about Windows 10 will soon include built-in eye tracking. That's right, built-in. So, of course, this obviously implies that you have a camera and all that good stuff. But this is a service that maybe you would have had to buy a lot, or buy for a lot of money, or just not really have access to. Instead, we have here something that could drastically improve a lot of people's lives. And this is another instance of Microsoft and their accessibility tools, more so than just kind of features that every user will be using. So here we have it, saying, and by the way, again, Engadget, John Fingus, saying it's not easy to use a PC if you have ALS or any neuromuscular disease that prevents you from using your hands. Where you can use eye tracking, but that could easily entail specialized software and an imperfect experience. So Microsoft thinks it can do better. It's adding built-in eye tracking to Windows 10 named Eye Control, right? That will let anyone navigate using their gaze. You can launch apps, type, and otherwise perform common tasks by focusing your eyes on the right part of the screen. And they even have an image of it here of what it looks like. And yeah, kind of imagine here they use a tablet. Obviously they, obviously they use a lot of, this will be available on any Windows 10 device. And yeah, it's pretty cool. They have a full QWERTY keyboard up there, and they have simple things like yes, wait, no, hello, goodbye. Simple keys for you to obviously track your eyes, stare at, and it would then input it. So you could probably send messages, you could probably browse the web, you could probably navigate a simple operating system, all with your eyesight. So Microsoft partnered with Tobii on eye control, and it won't surprise you to hear that Tobii's trackers have the broadest capability with a new feature. So this comes native, but if you want more out of it, Tobii. And the upgrade is available in beta as part of a Windows Insider preview. If you're eager to try it right away, although there's no firm timetable for when it will reach stable Windows versions. And remember, the new creators update that's coming in the fall, that's the one that is set to kill off Microsoft Paint and a lot of different features. So it's going to be a pretty big update. So the addition represents the next big step in making PCs truly accessible, where both Apple and Microsoft have accessibility features, by the way, which are amazing if you, lose your mouse, or you are, just kind of having troubles. I've been able to navigate my PC in harrowing times by using the accessibility tools. They're certainly something that you should take note of. But they're usually focused on vision and hearing issues. And this opens the door for people who need an entirely different control scheme. And don't be surprised if you see eye tracking interfaces come to other platforms and mobile devices. So I really feel like this is something that technology has given us, where it used to be prohibitively expensive. It used to be extremely complicated. The technology just wasn't sensitive. Cameras just weren't sensitive enough, things like that. I think this is more of a show of technology coming a distance rather than, you know, companies truly taking it out of their own time and effort. This was probably something that was easy to do, had a lot of bang for its buck, and everyone benefits for it. So very nice to hear it. And again, that coming to Windows 10 development update in the beta. May not make it in this newest one, but eventually we'll start to see it. So, okay, let's get a little angry. And by little, I mean a lot angry. So, for those of you not following, this is not American politics, this is UK politics, and this is something that a lot has been going on in the UK with privacy, the internet, surveillance. They just recently had some of their most sweeping and aggressive surveillance laws passed under the guise of protecting children from pornography. And that sounds great. It seems like a real vote getter. You know, who could come out looking good by going up against protecting our children? Well, this is something that the UK is doing something even more dire now, and their laws are really putting at risk what it means to be private and obscure on the internet, and rather be tracked continuously, regardless of who you are, constantly, and really turning the internet into a surveillance tool more than it is a tool for connection or, research or information. And it's more another arm of the government. I don't often sound like a doomsday prepper, but some of the legislation that's passed in the UK, and the internet is not country segregated, but some of the laws passed in the UK are unfortunately very draconian. So we have a new one here, or at least we have a new sentiment here that kind of reflects that and shows just how, I don't want to say out of touch, but just how the legislators see it differently than what I've heard from tech companies, from tech experts to security to private citizens, from about every other level. There's a real disconnect. So here we go. This coming from the UK Business Insider and Mr. Rob Price, saying that the UK Home Secretary Amber Rudd says that real people, quote unquote real people, don't need end-to-end encryption. There you have it. So the UK Home Secretary Amber Rudd has called on messaging apps like WhatsApp to ditch end-to-end encryption, arguing that it aids terrorists. Again, it's a hard thing to go up against and say, no thank you, and then they can shoot back and go, what are you doing? Are you a terrorist sympathizer? And next thing you know, you are staring down the wrong end of an accusation that you don't want to be. But let's get into this. Saying that the Conservative minister, this is a writing in the Telegraph, saying that real people don't need the feature and that tech companies should do more to help the authorities deal with security threats. Saying that, but activists have reacted with concern to her remarks, as they should, blasting them as dangerous and misleading, which they are. And strong end-to-end encryption involves encoding messages or data so it cannot be read by anyone other than the intended recipient, including the company whose tech encrypts it or law enforcement with a warrant. This is used, WhatsApp, I think, is probably everyone's biggest, second biggest, I would say, interaction with this technology. Facebook is doing it now with all of their messages, because really there's a huge privacy concern when it comes to the idea of, who can read your messages. When you're talking to someone, you're talking about maybe private matters or things you just don't want to get out. Who has access to them? And companies to help consumers feel secure in their communications, against against surveillance from the government, against surveillance from hackers, against surveillance from marketers, just people who have no business reading your private communications with family, friends, what have you. Well, they turned to end-to-end encryption. And so WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, end-to-end encrypts all of its messages by default. And Messenger, which is another Facebook app, offers the security feature as an option, as does Allo, and a messaging app from Google, among numerous other apps. Again, this is not a strange technology that is only used by terrorists. No, this is the technology used by, everyone. Especially, let's face it, the people who know best, security professionals, they've come on the show and they've said, I only use messaging services that give us the option of end-to-end encryption. Otherwise, they just don't use them. So, Amber Rudd saying that encryption is severely limiting our agency's ability to stop terrorist attacks. And that both the UK and around the world, end-to-end encryption is a contentious subject, saying that some law enforcement argue it impedes security services, and privacy activists and technologists respond that the tech is necessary to protect user data, and any backdoor or weakening of security would be open to abuse. Which it would be. It absolutely would be. So, in the wake of multiple terror attacks in Britain in 2017, Rudd claims that the tech is making it more difficult for authorities to fight terrorism, saying that the inability to gain access to encrypted data in specific and targeted instances is right now severely limiting our agency's abilities to stop terror attacks and bring criminals to justice. So, again, my knee-jerk reaction is in specific instances, and therefore, everyone must suffer for this. Everyone must lose the ability to have confidence that they are only speaking to the person that they intended to be speaking to. That's what I read. And the politician says that the British government does not intend to ban end-to-end encryption, but would like companies to voluntarily move away from it, arguing that it isn't necessary for real people. There was another article. I don't think we're going to get to it, but it ties in closely with this. Just came out today, where a security firm, or at least a security researcher firm, purchased, analytics. So things that are picked up by Google, Facebook, what have you, bought them in bulk from one of these companies that just collects data and sells it to people. And these people went out, just to give you an idea of what end-to-end encryption kind of does, or what it can prevent. And it won't prevent browsing habits or search terms or things like that, but it's along the same lines of what's being collected on you, what can be surveilled, what can be looked at, even if all identifying information is stripped out and you are simply left with the raw communications, what can really be shown about you. And again, in this other article, it happened in Europe, and I think it was Germany, where these researchers were able to buy information, and then they were able to discern from that a judge's private time internet browsing history and his preferences. If you catch my drift, they were able to find a military police MP, which I am showing my complete lack of culture, may have been a member of parliament or may have been a military police, probably a member of parliament, and they were able to find his prescriptions, what he took, and how much he took, all based on what were seemingly anonymous browsing habits, or at least anonymous stripped browsing data sold to them. Just because it's kind of that thing where they may not put an exact name and address to a person, but if they throw 1,000 darts all around a person, but they only leave out the bullseye, well, it's pretty easy to tell where the bullseye is. So, the idea that end-to-end encryption is not needed for regular people is the same kind of idea that people don't need privacy, people don't need, to keep anything on the internet safe or secret from anyone else. Completely false, and, actually pretty harmful for the consumer. So, they said that and they have a quote here saying that the suggestion that real people do not care about the security of their communications is dangerous and misleading. I would say so. Where some critics have slammed Rudd's remarks, arguing that if WhatsApp and other similar apps did make such a change, extremists and terrorists would simply switch to another end-to-end encrypted messaging app that doesn't cooperate with the UK government. It's been known to happen. I mean, these, people who want to do ill will, they don't, as soon as they catch wind of something. I mean, heck, we're having a very public conversation right now on this show, nationally syndicated. Love you guys. But we're having we're talking about it on national forum. The idea that you can look into text messages, apps, messaging apps. I mean, if something like this were to happen, they would just go somewhere else, and you're left with a much weaker state of consumer privacy and no better off when it comes to protections, to security, to anything like that. It's just how the world works. I mean, heck, it could even get down to the point where just burner phones with a phone number and they communicate that way. Let's face it, we've seen it on television 1,000 times. It's not hard if you don't want to be tracked. It's not hard to not be tracked. So here we go. To finish up this article, they're saying that Jim Killock, executive director of UK Digital Liberties Group, Open Rights Group, says in a statement, quote, that the suggestion that real people do not care about security of their communications is dangerous and misleading. Some people want privacy from corporations, abusive partners, and or employers. Others may be worried about confidential information or be working in countries with a record of human rights abuses. It is not the Home Secretary's place to tell the public that they do not need to end encryption, or at least that they do not need to end encryption. So he added, serious incompetent criminals and terrorists can apply their own encryption, and incompetent ones can be caught in any number of ways. It's only ordinary people, and they say in Amber Rudd's hideous terms, real people, that will suffer from her plans. So, Facebook and WhatsApp do not have an immediate response to this, but we have a link in the show notes to this article if you want to check it out more. But the UK is not America. But what happens in one place can very easily happen and can be pointed to and saying, hey, check out what they did. We need to do something similar. And right now we're having a huge conversation in this country about net neutrality, and it's kind of the same thing. I mean, the FCC already voted it's A-OK to sell your browsing history. We need to have that fight again, but at the same time, it's what really is the internet? Is it a place to monitor what your citizens are doing, or is it a place for the free exchange of ideas and services? And obviously the government is having one idea of that, whereas I think security, techies, and I would hope the public and individuals at large would see it a different way. So, okay. Now, let's move on to, and again, that one just kind of gets me worked up because it's that argument that they used to pass the legislation in the UK about monitoring your browsing habits. It was to save the children from looking at naughty things. And now we have another piece of legislation going through to strip away more liberties, to strip away more privacy and security under the guise of, well, to protect everyone from terrorism. And I don't know. I feel like when you use loaded arguments like that, you completely miss one side of it because the other side is just so heavy-handed, you don't get a reasonable counter argument. So there you have it. And okay, moving on to the next one. The next one. How about this one? And by this one I mean not that. Yeah, we can talk about this one. All right. So this is from Engadget once again and YouTube. So this is a quick story, or at least we won't get too far into this, but I think we've all come across it where maybe you've searched one thing, or maybe you've gone to that random video that you never go to, and then all of the related results, or at least the related videos, kind of pop up and they're not to your liking. Really, you couldn't think of anyone's liking who they would be to, but you get some very strange videos. Well, YouTube is looking to curb that even a little bit. So again, Engadget, Mallory Locklear, and YouTube has been working on ways to manage offensive and extremist content that do not violate its policies. So you may be wondering, extremist content, how does that not violate the policies? Well, sometimes it's just a freedom of speech thing. Sometimes it's just something that you and most reasonable people would disagree with on an emotional level. But, there's no violence, sex, gore, anything like that. There's nothing to purposely take it down other than, you disagree with it. So here's YouTube's, idea, saying that in a blog post, the company provided more detail about its ongoing efforts to separate this, saying that first, its machine learning video detection has been hard at work, and during the past month, over 75% of videos taken down because of violent extremist content were done so without the help of humans. Very impressive. And that this system has helped YouTube remove twice as many of these sorts of videos, where the company also started working with a number of non-government organizations, and these include like the Anti-Defamation League, No Hate Speech Movement, and Institute of Strategic Dialogue, all trying to help minimize the impact of radicalization and hate speech on YouTube. So, for videos that contain controversial religious or supremacist content, you can obviously see where that's going, but don't violate any terms of YouTube's policy, they'll now be placed in a limited state, where the videos will remain on YouTube behind an interstitial, won't be recommended, and won't be monetized, and won't have key features including comments, suggested videos, and likes. So if it's deemed hate speech or racist or radical or any of these things, obviously there's going to be an appeal process if you think that you were illegally labeled this, or not illegally, but erroneously labeled as one of these videos. But at the same time, it's going to automatically kind of only leave the content up, but kind of tamp down discussion. So it says that the limited state will start being applied to the desktop version in the coming weeks, and then hit the mobile version shortly after. And YouTube says that the changes are just the beginning, and it will be sharing more about its work in the months ahead. And that altogether, we have taken significant steps over the last month in our fight against online terrorism. But this is not the end. We know there is always more work to be done. And it's a very thin line to walk.
90 seconds.
There we go. Yeah, it's a very thin line to walk between censorship and, downright just taking things down that you don't agree with. It's a very tricky line, but YouTube seems to be working hard to, make it work. All right, so music means that we are done, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in here to Computer America. If you want to check out more from our first guest, Mr. Scott Steinberg, check out
60 seconds.
Check out his SelectCityMagazine.com, and be sure to check out his Modern Parenting Guide. Busy guy, and it was a lot of fun. ComputerAmerica.com for everything else. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, same place, as we have, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Mike Cermak on with us tomorrow. And, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun, always fun. And be sure to catch us Monday through Friday, Computer America, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Until then, everyone, have a great day. Catch you then. Bye-bye.
Ten seconds.